Hey, good morning everybody, and welcome to another edition of Cars and Coffee. I'm Kenny Brown, and for the next hour I'll be answering some of your questions and also sharing just stuff that I've learned over 40 years of professional motorsports and just building great cars. And today we've got some interesting things to talk about. See, I'm getting better at holding this up and not looking down, so I see the top of my head. We're going to talk about, this is based off of a question we got on the tech side, to heel or not to tow. I'll let you think about that. And pretty excited about two products we finally have back on the shelf after a little pause. The adjustable sway bar end links, and we'll talk about adjusting a sway bar, and also the IRS rear steer kits, which are kind of an important piece of rear suspension geometry. And of course, we're going to touch on the Speed Therapy Academy again. We'll talk a little bit about that later, and we'll hit some of your questions. But first, I got to tell you a story. Cliff Glidden, who is one of our Avid speed therapy people, and went through the whole workshop. How many people went through the Transforming Your Driving Experience workshop? And then the second question is, how many went to all 6 sessions? That'd be interesting to know that, because it's supposed to be 5 days, but there was so much to do. We just stretched it to 6, and even then I could not get nearly as much in there as I wanted to, which is why we came up with the Speed Therapy Academy. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But Cliff has number 44 of the Mustang Challenge cars. There was 3 Mustang Challenge cars in the Speedworks I engineered for the Mustang Challenge Series 2009 and 10. And Cliff has number 44, which is kind of cool to see because I got a whole notebook of stats on that car. But anyway, here's the story. Cliff lives in California, and all know California has wildfires. Well, apparently a wildfire was in his area, and it was heading their way.
I think he's in Nevada in the desert.
Is Nevada in the desert?
Close to California.
Close to California. Either way, somewhere out there in Nevada, California, in the desert. And one of the big fires were coming his way, so they were forced to evacuate. So, thinking, he grabs his wife, his dogs, a few important things, and the trailer with the race car inside, and he evacuated. Fortunately, when he came back, everything was okay. The fire stopped just very close, but stopped before it got to his house. But in any event, the race car would have been saved. So, I mean, that's dedication. And anyway, also, with Cliff, we are working at completely transforming that car from the basic Mustang Challenge race car into just an absolutely killer track car. We're doing suspension, brakes. It's going to be cool. And it's going to be really, really quick. He's going to be pretty surprised. And I think the people he runs with, they're going to go, what the hell did you do? Anyway, that's Cliff's story, which I think was kind of clever. On the 5-day workshop, we covered a lot, but we didn't cover enough. And that's why the thing I've learned in doing let's come out of Cars and Coffee is I'm realizing you guys just have an unbelievable thirst for knowledge and information. And that's why we came up with the 5-day workshop /6. So I could kind of put all the things we talk about on the Cars and Coffee sort of into, kind of into sequence. So it kind of makes more sense going start to finish on building a car. But even that, there was just not enough time to really talk about a lot of things. So Kerry came up with the idea, well, let's do, for the people that are really super interested, let's start a Speed Therapy Academy, which is sort of more going to be like school. It's going to be 12 weeks, at least, 10 to 12 times a month. Tuesday nights are going to be kind of the immersion. We're going to take a subject and really dive deep and talk about it. Thursday is going to be Q&A, and we're also going to try to get some other people in there, and I'll also try to do like one-on-one consults on cars. But this whole thing is going to be on Zoom, so it's going to be really personal. So as on Thursdays I'm doing a personal consult with somebody on Zoom, everybody else in the group is going to be listening. And next Thursday I'll talk to somebody else. So it's the way we can kind of put all the things that I'm talking about into like real world context. I mean, I went to college for I think 4 years, never graduated because I just couldn't and everything was theory. I mean, it really didn't give you context, and that's, I think, the thing is missing there. So I want to give you guys context. So, and then we're also going to have some guest speakers, industry experts who will, probably on a Wednesday during the day, and talk about, like Steve Shard's going to talk about, from Forza, is going to talk about wheels. We've got Doug, who's a professional instructor, number 2 at the Porsche Academy. And so it's going to be kind of cool. Now, we've had a lot of people that showed interest, but the big thing is, oh man, I just can't commit that time during the week because I'm so busy. Not to worry. Every episode is going to be recorded, and that is going to live in the library resources. So you don't have to be sitting there live. You can actually go back and view in the library resources. And the other good thing is that library resources for the inaugural class will be available and open for a year past the start of the academy. So, you don't have to be there, but you can really have that as a reference for next year. You can go back and watch things over again however you want. So that's pretty cool. It's going to be a lot of work, and honestly, I don't have the exact curriculum down yet. And the reason for that is part of the speed therapy deal is when you actually register and sign up, a couple things happen. One, you get a nifty Speed Academy polo shirt. Secondly, you're going to get a notebook that's divided so you can kind of keep track of everything we talk about. Third, most importantly, you and I are going to do around a half an hour interview on Zoom, so I can learn about you, your car, and the type of things you want to learn about. And from those interviews is going to kind of shape what we talk about through the 12 weeks of the Academy. So, I mean, I'm pretty excited about it. If you guys were listening earlier weeks, I was really, when Carrie came up with this idea, I thought, oh man, I don't know. But, the more she talked to me, I thought, yeah, that's going to be pretty cool. So, anyway, if you're really interested, there should be links or something to sign up or call into Carrie. And if anybody has talked to me this last week has heard of my voice, the trials and tribulations of having a lot of pollen in the air. So I got my water handy. Hopefully I'm going to get through this without any problem. But that brings up another thing. The 15-minute consults are going really, really well. People love them. If you want to extend it, okay, because it's so popular. If you're interested in doing a 15-minute consult, if you have questions that are more than a simple answer that we need to talk about, then either send your request in. You can send it in like you type it in today, or you can send Carrie a note in info@kennybrown.com, an email, or just call the main office line, 317-396-2768. Got it. Don't often call that. So that's kind of like some things that we can. Also questions. If you guys got questions today, start typing them in, and we'll get to as many as we can towards the end. Let's see, going down our list here. Glenn, the 5 days, the workshop. Oh, don't forget all the thumbs up and heart-shaped wrenches, because that helps us spread the word. Oh, now I'm fumbling. Huh? Thanks. If you just joined us, I'm Kenny Brown, and this is Cars and Coffee. We're going to spend the next, I guess it's 50 minutes now, answering some of your questions and then talking about just things I've learned over 40 years of professional motorsports and building great cars. And what I'm trying to do is give you guys good quality information, because some of the stuff I see on the internet and what people tell me somebody else told them, I mean, it's just, you have to be really careful where your information comes from. So I'm trying to give you the best information I can from hands-on first person experience. So, and then we've got the other thing, all the questions come from the Speed Therapy Society. If you're not a member of the Speed Therapy Society, you can sign up. There should be something somewhere that you can click onto or sign up, because all the questions I talk about come through the society. And today's questions, got some really good ones. Some really good ones. Now this, everybody is going to relate, okay, to Herstifer. He says, what's the optional way to reduce track expense for track days, okay? In terms of tires, brakes, oil, brake fluid, etc., as lately my driving has improved, my track expenses are going through the roof. Yep, and that is like how it happens. But the only thing you can do is you can save brake pads by not being ultimate aggressive, but being like my brake pads last a long time. If your brake pads are only lasting for one event, you might, if you want to, extend their life, you might want to think about changing that style and how you brake. Even 2 events. There's a couple of ways to brake. In racing, it's like you're either 100% on the gas or 100% on the brake. You could just dive, you're careening up to the corner as fast as you can, wait the absolute last second, just nail the brakes as hard as you can to get it slowed down so you can set up for the corner. Well, in track driving, it's not a Grand Prix. There's no trophies. Roger Penske isn't sitting up there scouting people. So, I mean, it's the whole thing about track driving. It's fun. It's fun to drive. It's fun to go quick. If you're looking at a scale of, when we do this, the academy, I think I'm going to get myself a whiteboard so we can do this better. But if you're looking at, like, if this is your braking, in racing, you're going along and boom, it's almost straight up. You're really loading the brakes. You get them hot really, really fast, putting a lot of energy into them. Remember, we're transferring kinetic energy of that 3,800-pound mass moving down the track into heat energy via the brakes. And boom, that's going to, you get brake real late, stop really hard, but it eats pads, just like a race car. We get one set of pads for a race. They're gone. So if you're using that much brake pads, then think about the way I brake is, rather than going boom like that, I'll kind of go, kind of start just, gently heat on down and down. And just as I get to the end, just before I turn the wheel, I'll give the brakes that extra little tap just to set the nose and then turn the wheel. I go really quick, and I don't kill brake pads. My rotors last a long time. So it's just kind of like a little tip. You can change your braking to extend your brake pads, and believe it or not, it really doesn't slow you down that much. Even though you think you're going to go a whole lot slower, you really don't. It's just a matter of making your brake pads last instead of going boom, going whoop like that. Just increasing the pressure. That way they come up to heat gradually. It's not a shock load, shock temperature on it, and they'll last a little longer. But if you do, don't forget the extra little tap at the end before you turn the wheel. Unless you're trail braking, which we talked about before, with the ABS cars, is really easy to trail brake. Trail brake is you're still braking going into the corner. And as Doug is going to tell you in one of his sessions, if you were to take a string from the steering wheel and put it from the steering wheel down to your brake foot, anyway, as your steering wheel turns, the string should be pulling your foot off the brake. See? Steering wheel, foot comes off the brake, and that way you don't lock up brakes. And you trail brake into, like, there's certain corners you can trail brake into. Most corners you can't. Anyway, that's the little thing on braking. I kind of got off track, but I do that. As this is Cars and Coffee, so I'm going to take a sip here. Anyway, getting back to Hurstver, there's no way. The faster you go, the more consumables you burn up. Like I say, we're racing, we get 1 race out of brake pads, 2 races out of brake rotors, 1 race out of a set of tires, and go through a lot of brake fluid. So the faster you go, the more consumables you're going to use. That's just how it is. There's braking techniques, you can save brake pads a little bit. As far as tires, the trick on tires here. Okay, I just thought of this. The trick on saving tires, first of all, be smooth. When we used to do our schools, our driving schools, I had signs all over the place. Smooth is good, smooth is fast. Be smooth, you're not going to tear up tires. Another thing that people don't realize is a really good set of shocks will make your tires last longer. And that's kind of like the great thing about the JRZs we use. The JRZs really, the valving is so good, they increase tire wear. So a bad, just a regular set of shocks, you might not get as good a tire wear, but a good set of shocks, you're going to get better tire wear. Plus, having their suspension dial. Remember, tire temperatures gives you tire pressure first, and after you got pressure, then you set your camber. And if you got everything cooking, then the tires are going to wear evenly, and that's going to add longevity to everything. So, I mean, that's the only thing I can say. The only tips I can come up with, because the faster you go, the more stuff you use, and also the more nuts and bolts checks you should do. We got a really good example of that. I can't remember somebody who was sent in with on the upper link. Just sent an email back to the upper link loosened up.
That was Steve Castellini.
Okay, Steve was doing his nut and bolt check, and double thumbs up for doing nut and bolt check, and he found the jam nut on the upper link was loose, and he was asking how to get it, how tight it should be torqued. Well, torque is irrelevant for a 3/4 inch jam nut. I mean, a 3/4 inch bolt, the torque value is something like 300 pounds. You'll never get that in the jam nut. But the thing is, on race cars, on track cars, things do loosen up. It's a fact of life. That's why you do, diligently do your nut and bolt checks, because you can catch that. So his choice is to take it out and give it a good, crank it down as hard as you can. I think it takes maybe 1/16 or 28 millimeter wrench. Or the other little trick, you don't want to take it out, it's kind of like back the nut all the way off. Get your brake clean and spray the threads, because they might have anti-seize on it. Because remember, I put anti-seize on anything that comes with a rod end, will have anti-seize on it, just because. It'll last longer, it's easier to adjust. But squirt off the anti-seize and then put maybe a drop of blue Loctite on there, and then just get the nut as tight as you can get it, and that should hold it. So anyway, double thumbs up for catching that nut and bolt check. That just makes me feel so good that people are listening, because things do loosen up. Let's see, Christopher. Okay, Steve Castellini, you've got a big bunch of questions on safety, and I think that's going to be my subject for next week. Because I know we've been putting it off for a couple of weeks, but you're top of the list for next week. And then, Rick O'Mara had some really, really good questions on. Let's see. The first one is another one of my favorite subjects. He wanted to ask, how do you address heel and toe setup on Mustangs? Pedal height, pedal types, how to use a dead pedal, or do you use a dead pedal, and any gas pedal adjustments you might need. Okay, in race cars, we are very, very focused on getting the relationship between brake and gas so the drivers can do heel and toe. Now let's back up. What is heel and toe, and where did it originate? Well, it originated years and years and years ago, because when I started racing in the 70s, it was already a common thing, but that was because in race cars, when to downshift, you have to match the engine speed with the transmission so you can do a quick downshift. So if you're coming down, and in race cars, gears are pretty closely spaced. So if you're coming down like from 5th gear to 3rd, bum, 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 you got to do real quick heel toe, get the thing downshifts and get around the corner. The more modern the cars, to me, the less important heel and toe is, because we're not racing. We're track driving. We're enjoying ourselves, and a lot of instructors in the driving clubs are just going to go when I say it, like in this 197. Forget about heel and toe, and there's a very good reason for that. Anytime I've been coaching people, and I start coaching them, and I see them kind of fumbling, trying to do the heel and toe thing, getting around the corner, and here's what happens. If you're focusing on the heel and toe thing, you're not focusing on where the car is or how to get around the corner, okay? What I do in this 197, you pretty much only use 2 gears, 3rd and 4th. Every track I go to 5th maybe, but for the most part, it's just 3rd and 4th. And it's just, I'll come charging up to a corner, I'll just, do my brake thing, and then when I'm getting close to end of braking, I'll just give the engine a rev, drop it into gear, and go around the corner. That way I'm focusing on getting around the corner and not fumbling with my feet. So in this 197, if you're doing it, if you want to keep doing it, fine. But just try not doing it and see if getting around the corner becomes more comfortable. But remember, you just hit the brakes hard, like I do. The acceleration brakes. As soon as the car slows down, just rev it and drop it into gear and turn. It's just that simple. Now on the SN95s, if you want to do okay, the S197s, I mean, pedals are set. I mean, you can't do anything with them. They're there. And the SN95, if you'd like to try that, you actually can bend the gas pedal just a little bit over towards the brakes, which is the trick I did. Because you really, in a production car, you can't really move pedals around easily. I mean, you can, it's just a whole lot of work. So SN95s, you just take the brake pedals because it's metal, and you can kind of just move it over a little bit. S197s are plastic and it's drive-by-wire, so you can't really do that. They'll break. But the SN95s you can. So it's kind of like my to heel or not to tow type of thing. You can do it if you like, but I'd like you to try not doing it and focusing on getting the car slowed down, getting it set for the corner and getting around the corner. I think if you've been fumbling and struggling, I think you'll find this is smoother. And remember, smooth is good, smooth is fast. Which is also a note to people out there who are super aggressive drivers. Here's what happens with super aggressive drivers. Two things. One, they're not fast. Secondly, they will crash. That's just the way it is. You need to be smooth. Smooth is good. Your feet need to be like, it needs like to be a ballet. Everything needs to be super smooth, whether it's your foot on the gas, your foot on the brake, the steering, any kind of transition needs to be just smooth. The smoother you are, the quicker you're going to be. There are certain tracks, like let's say Mid-Ohio, for example, that's technical, that I tell people you have to slow down to go fast. And I've had coaching people that are just really struggling. I said, just slow down. Slow down for a session. Just kind of focus on the car and just slowly pick up your speed. And they'll come in and they'll say, well, that was a lot smoother, but no, they figure out they just went a whole bunch faster. So, I mean, smooth is good. I mean, everything has to be just really smooth. Just think of almost in slow motion, you know how like dancers kind of do that thing? Your feet need to be really smooth. Your steering needs to be smooth. You start doing that. Oh, that's another thing. You start doing that with your steering wheel, you're going to tear up your tires. And if you're smooth, you're not going to tear up your tires. So, boy, I went all the way around the block on that one, I think. So anyway, that's the thing on heel and toe. And let's see, before we get to, Rick O'Mara had some really good questions. Here we go. Oh, if you like what I'm sharing, you can do me a favor and share it with your friends. Well, you guys have been here around, know what that's all about.
Yeah, they'd be a little more kind of
smooth. I knew.
Smooth is good.
Well, yeah, smooth is good, and that was not very smooth, so it wasn't very good. So anyway, yeah, if you're getting value out of this, if you're enjoying it, and you have friends that you think could also get value out of it, certainly please share it with them. Because the more the merrier, the more the better. The more questions we get. So okay, let's see. We got Rick O'Mara's got another question. Where did it go? Oh, here it is, up here. But before I get to that, that's on Cobras. I want to talk a little bit about what we have back in stock that I'm really happy about because this has been a while. We have got S197 adjustable sway bar end links. Now, this one is, I kind of polished it up for today, but we're actually going to send these off to anodize. But we were having trouble, first we had trouble getting these and having trouble getting these. We finally got them all together, we got them. Now, why is an adjustable sway bar end link important? Adjustable sway bar end link is important because what you do not want on your front sway bar is to have it preloaded. And what do I mean by preload? It means if it's on the ground and you have to kind of strain or push something to get that to hook up the sway bar, that's going to be a preload. With an adjustable end link, you can just adjust it until it just boop, just drops in, no resistance, tighten it up. What happens if you've got a preloaded sway bar, that's going to affect braking. It's not going to be so much in an ABS car because they kind of make up for it. But if it's a non-ABS car, what happens under really hard braking, if there's a light tire, that tire will lock. And that can either be the front corner weights are off, which when I do corner weights on race cars, I focus on the front first. Either the front corner weights are off or the sway bar's preloaded. And you can see a really good example of that if you watch Formula One. If you see these guys really, getting after it, Going into a corner, if they lock a brake, lock a tire, which one is it? It's the inside tire. That's the one that has the least amount of weight on it. That's the light tire. So if you've got a preloaded sway bar, you possibly can have a light tire, and it could affect your braking. So adjustable sway bar end links, take care of it. And I always put them a little bit shorter than stock. I just like them a little shorter than stock because the car's lower and just kind of makes things look a little better. So I'm so glad we got these back. It's been so long without them. And then the other cool thing we got back for you Cobra guys is rear steer kits. Now, what is a rear steer kit? Okay, on the IRS Cobras, interesting thing happens in roll. Now, I discovered this, I think it was in maybe 2003, somewhere in there. We were down at Road Atlanta with Ford Racing, and Ford Racing was doing a media day with their FR500 Mustangs. They had 3 of them, and they had like a Corvette and a Viper to kind of compare them to, and they had a whole bunch of media people there. One thing I noticed is, coming to Road Atlanta, there's like 2 right-hand corners at the very far end of the track. Is I went around the second corner, about halfway through, the back of the car kind of wanted to get loose, and I didn't really like that. And also, the other time I did it, which was scary in hell, this is before they put a little kink in there, is coming up under the bridge before the last corner, which is sort of blind over a hill. That's scary enough, but as soon as I got over the hill, the back of the car wanted to do this. Oh, shit. So I went back and I put all the coordinates into my little geometry program, and I started looking at things. And what I discovered is when the car gets to a certain degree of roll, both rear wheels steer the wrong way. So if you're going this way, the wheels steer that way. If you're going that way, the wheels steer this way. That's why the car got loose, because the rear wheels steered the opposite direction at a point of roll. So what we do is we actually lower the inside pickup point down, which it takes a lot of the roll steer out. It's kind of, I keep telling you guys that I do all the R&D, research and development, and everybody else's R&D is rip off and duplicate. And I see on the internet people advertise rear bump steer kits. Okay, I get a chuckle out of that. Bump steer is the front of the car. Okay, bump steer is when you're going around a corner and you can hit a bump and the wheel steers. That's why you just take the bump steer out so it doesn't do that. Well, the back wheels don't steer unless they go through roll. They steer the wrong way. What happens is back is roll steer, not bump steer. So I always get a chuckle out of that. I tell you, people copy me, don't know why, but they just copy me. So then you're saying, okay, I got a Cobra, but man, my outer tie rod is shot. And I called the Ford dealer, they don't make them anymore. I called the parts store, they can't get them. We got them. We actually went to one of our suppliers and had them make these. So, because they're out of production almost everywhere. So we actually can get the outer tie rod ends, which is, if you've got a Cobra, they're all getting miles on them. Check your outer tie rod end. If you need one, we've got them. And it's a perfect match for this. Now, another interesting thing about when we do, like when we pull the whole IRS carrier off and we do our full geometry update, we actually take, when I move this down, about that much, the inner pickup point down, we actually drop it down even more. So there's extra little spacer that goes on here, and that pretty much takes all the roll steer out. What we've heard is the guys that drag race, I'm not a drag racer, they say with a rear steer kit, it actually keeps the rear wheel straighter under acceleration, which is a good thing. So taking the roll steer out is, no matter how you look at it, it's a very good thing. It's not bump steer, it's roll steer, because when the car rolls, it steers the wrong way. So there's the 2 things I'm pretty excited about we have back in. Have we got questions coming in yet, Terry?
We have a couple. I haven't asked for questions.
Well, I'm not ready yet.
Okay. Well, why don't you ask for questions? If
we got questions, this is time to send them in. Rick has another really good question. The 9904 Cobras had Hydro Boost. In earlier cars, non-Hydro Boost had vacuum assist. Now he's talking about the brakes. And just to kind of tell the difference now, everybody's familiar with power brakes. You go under the hood and here's a master cylinder, this great big round thing. That's a vacuum assist. What happens is they use the engine vacuum to in this diaphragm inside there to assist you in braking. So it makes braking easier. Power brakes, vacuum assisted brakes. Well, when they came out with the Cobras, there was not enough room to put a traditional vacuum assist brake system in there, so they went to Hydro Boost. Hydro Boost is kind of like, it's cool and it's complex and it's kind of crazy at the same time. The Hydro Boost takes the power steering pump and fluid, and it puts it through this little gizmo up on the with the brakes, giving it power brake, but it also takes care of the power steering. So you got the boost doing both steering and brakes at the same time, and it does it because it's got a whole bunch of. If you ever took one apart, it's crazy. It's got all these little chambers and valves and things, and it works great when it works. When it doesn't work, it's kind of a pain. But Rick asked that, is it more reliable? I think, yeah, maybe. More reliable than, I don't know, I mean, vacuum. I think it just depends which one is more reliable. But is it better? Well, it's better than the Cobra because you actually get power brakes, but they're using hydraulic assist rather than vacuum assist. And less prone for big camshafts, absolutely. Anybody that's put a big camshaft in a car that's got power brakes instantly discovers that because in camshafts where you got the overlap, that lump, 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 it actually reduces intake vacuum. And if you don't have intake vacuum, you don't have power brakes. So, for a lumpy camshaft, a lot of the cars actually with vacuum brakes actually get an extra reservoir thing that helps reserve vacuum so that they can still have power brakes. With Hydro Boost, that doesn't make any difference. I mean, the Hydro Boost system is completely separated from the engine. Does it heat the power steering fluid? Yes. And that's why I think the 0304 Cobras have a power steering cooler. Any of the SN95 track cars we do, I always put a power steering cooler on it. I mean, everything gets hot. Keeping it cool is a better thing. So, yeah, if you don't have a power steering cooler on your car, I'd suggest at Fox or SN95, and you do a lot of track days, I suggest looking at getting one. It'll just make everything last longer, and you always have steering and brakes. Now, Roy's run AIX with a 99 Cobra. We adapted a Daytona prototype dry sump engine to, and he was just having all kinds of problems. He either had brakes or steering and no brakes. I mean, it went back and forth, and we tried everything, and he's just been dealing with it. I got an email that a couple of weeks back said, "Boof, it's gone. It's fixed all by itself." So I said, when it works, it's great, because he changed steering rack, he changed ABS, he changed the Hydro Boost system itself. So somehow something happened miraculously, and it's working again. My best guess is there was just a little particle of something that was in the ABS, the little ABS module that does all these clickety-click things. There was something in there that was maybe screwing up. It's working fine, yay. So that's kind of like, the other question, does the pedal feel vary with RPM? No, it's the same. Because the pressure is regulated in there. I mean, the pressure kind of stays the same the whole time, so there's no impact. So that's kind of like the story behind Hydro Boost. It's good in a Cobra because you can't get anything else in there. And if you ever looked under the hood of a Cobra, the engine is so wide. The little Hydro Boost system is this wide, where a traditional vacuum power brake can be like that. Oh, I see Carrie coming up, which means we have questions. Let me see if I got everything on my list. I mentioned the 15-minute consults are doing well. If you want one, check in. I mentioned Steve, we're going to do your safety question next week. Christopher. Steve Smith wanted to know about getting his front splitter for a 12 Mustang GT. I will check on that. The company that we get our splitters from actually builds them to order. So I'll check next week and see if they have them for a 12 GT. I would guess they would, but don't take that to the bank. Let me check and see if we can get one for you. But they're beautiful carbon splitters, and the kind of nice thing about the splitters we get is they don't have any holes drilled, so it isn't. This is exactly where you set it. That gives you the option to put as much or little splitter in front of the car as you want. About 2 inches is about all you really want. A long time ago, I saw some aero data that anything over like 2.5 inches, the increase in downforce diminished, and once you got over 3 and closer to 4, it actually went the other way. It created a huge amount of drag and no downforce. So, 1.5 to 2 inches is kind of nice for if it's a track car. You might want to go to 3. If it's a race car, up to 4, but not over 4. Remember to join the Speed Therapy Society Facebook group, because if you want to send questions in, there's a whole bunch of resources in there. We try to keep adding to it all the time, and there's a whole bunch of good comments. So yeah, if you're not a member, just pop in there. And then Speed Therapy Academy, if you really want to get down to the nitty-gritty of stuff, then sign up for the academy. It's worth the nifty polo shirt you wear to the track. So, okay, I can tell that Carrie is up here with a computer. That means we have questions. It's time for me to sip coffee.
We have a lot of really interesting conversations going on. Yay, Robert Johns just made it here. So, but good. You can watch the beginning later, Robert. Robert actually is going to go through the academy.
Oh, cool. I look forward to seeing you and your half-hour interview.
Okay, let's see. First, I want to go back to what you were just talking about. And we have a question from Ernie. He has, first of all, Ernie says, it's time for a new picture behind you.
I know. I know. Actually, we talked about that this morning. We've been so busy. I only have 3 of my pictures in the office. The others are in storage. And it's just a matter of coming up with the time to go over and dig through storage. I got so many pictures over there. Well, we talked about that. I said, Carrie says, should we change the picture? I said, well, let's see if anybody notices. Damn, if I got caught.
Okay, so anyway, Ernie also had another question, and that was in regard to this is so hard to find this stuff. Why did you not go with a sealed tie rod end instead of a greased fitting?
On tie rod ends? Okay. For a really good reason. I told you this asthma stuff was killing me. Greased tie rod ends, very simply, are cheap tie rod ends. That's the best way to put it. What I use is super high grade JMX, which are FKs, top premium rod ends. They're 3-piece and they're Teflon lined. So the Teflon greases itself. Anytime you see a rod end with a grease fitting on it, it's probably telling you it's a 2-piece and there's nothing inside the rod end like Teflon, so you're using grease in there. You don't ever want a greased rod end because they're cheap, and if you put too much load on them, a lot of times if it's really cheap, it'll break. So yeah, I use professional grade rod ends, 3-piece Teflon lined. Plus, anybody that's ever gotten like one of our rear grip kits will notice I actually have them built extra tight. I like starting with them extra tight because everything loosens up sooner or later. So yeah, that's quality. I just go for the best, and you should too.
Okay, so here is we have lots of. Well, Brian West is sort of related to this, I think, because I'm not technical. I don't quite understand this question. Do bar links with your equivalent weight in the driver's seat?
Oh, yeah, actually, that's a really good point. If you're setting your sway bar, you should do it with at least half a tank of gas and the driver sitting in the driver's seat, because that's going to give you the real actual, and that way you're sure to not have it preloaded. Same thing if you're doing corner weights on the car, you always undo your sway bars. So yeah, you can do it the other way because it's static, but if you want to be really correct about it, do it with either the driver in the seat or the representative weight. Good question.
Okay, so Brian West, maybe next week, he said, question, but I see on some S197s 4-point rollover bars, the legs off the main hoops are attached near the tunnel third link. Is this the hot setup?
Okay, read that again.
Okay, this is from Brian West. He sees that on some S197s, the 4-point roll bars, the legs off the main hoop are attaching near the tunnel. Third link. Is this the hot setup?
I don't know about hot setup, but it's certainly, I mean, if it's a race car, you definitely want to tie in the third link. But I mean, the chassis on the 197s is engineered to accept the third link, so that's not as critical. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, it's good, but it's more critical to get the down bar straight back. And if you add a couple extra to the third link, I mean, that's all the better. In a race car, I actually would tie that link in. So.
Okay, and Ernie has a question back to the bump steer. He said the front bump steer's tie rod ends that are grease fitting that he bought from us. Is there a reason for that versus, because you just said? Oh
yeah, well that's a completely different. That's a tie rod end. It's not a spherical bearing, and that is OE quality. And OE quality things, you grease OE. A lot of ball joints you grease. I mean, some of the like from the factory, they'll have like non-greasable. But they're lined with something that anything aftermarket is grease, and you don't want to over grease, just enough. If you over grease starts coming out, grease attracts dust and it gets messy. So yeah, the tie rod ends are an OE. They're very similar to this. As you can see, that's got a little fitting for greaser in it. So that's sort of an OE type of tie rod end, where this is a spherical bearing, and it's completely different.
Okay. So we had a number of conversations on the left foot, your heel toe, not left foot.
Oh, he also asked if I use a dead pedal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, dead pedal. Even in the cars we were building in the 90s, I always put a dead pedal in every car we built, including the Crown Vics and the and the Marauders. We put a dead pedal in those too.
Okay, so a number of people are commenting on the heel toe. Tim Thomasak just said, the left foot trail braking has not worked yet for me. My brain doesn't seem to know push a little with left foot and push harder with right foot.
Then I would suggest not trying it. If it doesn't come natural, and it's not so much your right foot, it's like your left foot's coming off the brake as you're turning, and then you're getting slowly into the right foot. Boy, I don't know how to. So the right foot and left foot aren't talking to each other. I think I'd sit down and have a very serious conversation with them and just see what the hell's going on, you guys, and then see if you can kind of straighten them out. But it's just it's practice. Anything takes practice. I do trail braking. I didn't even think about it. I remember Mid-Ohio, maybe 15, 20 years ago, we're going around my old blue, which is my 93 World Challenge car, Mustang. And I was taking one of the other instructors around, and he just was blown away at how good I could trail brake. And I said, I was? I mean, it's something that I do. I don't even think about it. It's just natural for me. But, other people obviously have to work at it. And if it's too difficult, don't worry about it. It's more important to focus on where the car is, getting it set up, getting your turn in right, getting your late apex, remember late apex, and getting your track out. That's more important than dealing with trail braking if it's uncomfortable.
So, and this is another conversation, but I just thought you would like to know this. So Travis says that he teaches himself on during everyday driving on the empty back roads, legal speeds of course, and works up to spirited driving. Learning on track is a lot harder, and it changes your focus. Even today, if he gets a heel toe wrong, it affects him for 2 corners on most tracks.
Yeah, see that kind of like is what Travis is saying is he likes to practice on just country roads, obeying the speed limits, of course. On a track, if he messes up, he said on track, if he messes up his heel toe, it screws him up for 3 corners. That was my original point exactly. If you're doing track days, and you're not, the A group with a super hot race car, don't worry about it. Just focus on getting the car slowed down, set up, get into the corner. That's more important than trying to heel toe.
Okay, and then This one I might take at the end. Jay was doing harder braking at Road America. Maybe I'm into it now. We'll go through it. He was braking a lot harder at Road America this past weekend, but he warped the rotors. So he had frozen rotors, Hawk DC 30 pads, and 4 piston brakes.
Okay.
I don't think he's asking. He was just making a comment, but I thought
He
that
warped
was
the
interesting.
rotors. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what kind of rotors he had. If they were stock rotors, that's easy to do because stock rotors really aren't built to take the kind of heat you generate on track. DTC 30s, I think that's only about 1,100 degree brake pad. I'd have to double check on that. And as far as I think, if you had, I don't know, if you had a like 2-piece slotted rotor, they work a lot better. I mean, they cool better. They don't have as much problem. Typically, when you get a warped rotor, it happens when you stop and you keep your foot on the brake pedal. And when you stop and keep your foot on the brake pedal, everything's super hot. And when your foot's on the brake pedal, the hot pads are on the hot rotor. And what's happening is the rest of the rotor is cooling down rapidly, and the part where the brake pads are on is not cooling down as fast. So the end result of that, you'll get a warp. So I mean, if you got warp rotors, I recommend first of all, don't put your foot on the brake after you come off track in pit lane. Keep your foot off the brake. Put it in gear. Put it, turn it off. Put it in gear. You want that to cool. And then secondly, get yourself some 2-piece slotted rotors. I mean, they make a big difference on cooling and also pad life.
Okay, I'm going to have you think about this one while I ask you other questions. Do you think you can do that? Okay, Tim Allen, do you have a favorite track moment where your team was involved in the race?
Oh, man.
You want to think about that?
God, I got so many of them.
Maybe we should do a half-hour
I
track
can do a half
session.
hour on that.
Probably more. Okay. In fact, the Celine group has invited you to.
Yeah.
We can probably tell some stories there.
I can tell a real quick one.
Okay.
That the 24 Hours of Canada, 86, with the Celine cars, we were in the GT class. We were leading the GT class pretty substantially. And in the middle of the night, about 4 o'clock in the morning, Rick got tangled up with another car and crashed our leading car. We pulled it back. It was unrepairable. So we went back to the number 2 car that Desiree and Lisa were driving, and we had a problem with the number 2 car. We didn't know until after the race what the problem was, but what had happened in practice or qualifying, I can't remember which, she got just a little loose off of one and kind of hit the wall. And what we didn't realize at the time, 2 things happened. One, it cracked the gas tank on top, and secondly, it knocked out this little tray in the bottom that the gas pump sits in, the fuel pump sits in. It actually knocked that loose. It was sliding back and forth. So we're only getting like 25 to 30 minutes out of a tank of gas instead of 45 to 50. And we first discovered something was wrong. We pushed the car to the start-finish line, and we topped it up, and gas was running out in the ground. And the tech guy goes up and says, "What the hell's that?" I said, "We just overfilled it." Quick thinking. Oh, okay, sent us on our way. Anyway, we had to continually do more and more pit stops. So we put Steve in the car with Desiree, and we brought the car from 3rd place to 2nd, and then we got it into 1st place. But in the middle, this is like close to morning, early morning. We were in pit lane doing fuel and tires and things. I think it was just fuel, and because it was a yellow flag, and because 86 Mustangs have drum brakes. Just imagine that, trying to race, endurance race with drum brakes on the back and 10-inch rotors on the front. And because they had drum brakes, that I forgot how long, we actually had a big chart that Jay did. Every so often I had to slide into the back with a little adjusting tool and adjust the rear brakes up. So I'm under there doing a quick brake adjust, and as I'm looking at in front of us, the team in front of us were novice, I'll say, and I'm being kind. Anyway, the driver jumped in the car, red mist all over the place, starts it up, puts it in gear, takes off with the gas still attached to it. pulls the whole gas unit into the pit lane. So I see gas running. I just yelled, "Get her out of here!" I got out from underneath the car. She tiptoed through the gas puddle and got through it, and they closed the pit lane right at that point. And it was closed for like 5 laps. Because of that, we won the race.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. It's pretty spectacular. Wow.
Yeah, if I hadn't got her out, we wouldn't have run.
Wow. Wow, it's dangerous too.
Oh, it scared the hell out of me.
Wow.
Unfortunately, there was no fire, just a lot of gas. And, you know, the SCCA people were just really quick to get it taken care of. But the pit lane was closed for maybe 5 laps. And that would have made a difference at the end.
Wow. Okay, so we have a couple more questions here. And we have, oops. I was listening to you, now I lost my spot. Okay, Warren Johnson, Racer Warren. Does high oil temperature put S197s in limp mode? Ran the Trofeo R's, getting consistent 1.5 G laterals. Wow.
Wow.
That's why we call him Racer Warren. Allowing me to get on the throttle sooner. I am going to have to increase cooling capability. Doesn't push near as much. Better balance.
Okay. I'm guessing anything runs hot in those cars, it goes into limp mode. I know in the 0304 Cobras with superchargers, if you didn't do a whole lot for cooling, you get about 3-4 laps out of them, they go into limp mode because they just get too hot. You know, and Warren's got like a mega horsepower GT500, and the more cooling the better. You know, I can't remember if he's got a vented hood or not, but that's good. You can put an oil cooler in there, which will go a long ways to keeping your oil temperature down. It's good to run oil temperature and water temperature about the same. Oil temperature a little bit higher, but not a lot. But as soon as you start getting up over the 270 oil temperature, you're getting into like danger zone. You hit 300, and you can possibly start delaminating bearings at 300 degrees oil temperature. So yeah, it might be time for an oil cooler. Yeah, the faster you go, the faster you go. Remember I said the faster you go, the more stuff you need, the sooner you burn things up. There's a good example. That's 1.5 Gs. That's with all our suspension and Trofeos. That's rocking, especially in a GT500 because they got so much nose weight. It's really hard to get them around the corner quick. So that's excellent, really excellent.
So Mike Morrison, do you ever change Ackerman steering in the cars? If so, what do you like?
The answer is no. I mean, it's not that bad from the factory. I can tell you a very, very long time ago, I used to look after several Formula Vs. This is in the early 70s, and we would actually on the spindle, you know, where the tie rod end hooked up, we would actually heat that and bend it so we could take some of the Ackerman out because it was too much. But what Ackerman is, so that you know, as you go around the corner, okay, your wheels turn. Now, if you think about it, if you're looking down from the top, the outer wheel has a longer radius around the corner, and the shorter wheel has a shorter radius around the corner. Well, the whole idea about Ackerman is as you turn, the inside wheel is going to turn just a teeny bit more because its radius is shorter, and so the tires don't scrub. So that's kind of what Ackerman is. You know, I just with the newer cars, I just don't even mess with it. It'd be a lot of work and for minimal gain. Pure on race car, well, that's a different story. But you know, I don't worry about it. So Ackerman is actually the wheels turn, the inside wheel is going to turn more because inside radius looking down, the radius around the corner of the inside wheel is shorter than the outer wheel, which is longer.
Okay, this is our last question from Donald Norby. Will your brake package work for a Jaguar E-Type?
Brake package work for a Jaguar E-Type?
Your brake package, yeah.
I'm not sure what he means about brake package.
I'm assuming the Pro 4Rs.
Pro 4Rs, all we have for now, the bolts-on application is S197 and SN95. Mustang. As far as putting them on other cars, is it possible? I would say probably, but you'd have to fabricate the brackets to mount the calipers on so you get them right with the rotors.
The other thing is the 6 Extreme 6 are really a good comparable package from
Well,
Bear.
I'd have to check and see if Bear has a big brake package for that. But I don't know. I'll check and see. What year is it?
He didn't say. He said Race Bear. Yeah, he responded back. That was the Racing Bear.
Yeah, I mean it's possible. You're just going to have to fabricate the brackets.
He'll be back in a moment. So how many people? I have another off-track story that I think Ken could tell what the Celine days. Does anybody want to hear that? Say yes or no.
Okay, this is the bracket. This is called a radial mount. And here's where a factory brake hooks up. It bolts to the spindle. Well, real brakes, race brakes, don't bolt to the spindles. They're radial mount, and that means they drop on. You bolt this to the spindle, and the calipers drop onto there. What you would have to do is have somebody engineer or fabricate an adapter so that you could put those brakes on the car. Back in '95, I was building a track car for the management at the Mustang group, and I wanted really cool brakes. It was a supercharged car. We actually stroked it at the 352. It's a 302 stroked out to 352, and it was supercharged, made buckets of horsepower. But what we did is, Brembo back then had a really nice 4-piston caliper. It was called I think the F40 maybe. And so what we did is we actually machined our own brackets, and we mounted the Brembo onto the 95 Cobra that we built for Forge Management. And by the time we got done, all the people in management were transferred to other places, a whole new management team in there. And Janine, who was running Mustang Group, didn't have any idea what to do with it. She gave the car to John Coletti, and stories were that he went around Dearborn just laying down massive black marks because this thing made just buckets of power. And just kind of a side note is the 2000 Cobra R had these little Brembo brakes on it, and then the 0304 Cobras were supercharged. Just a coincidence, I'm sure. Okay.
Okay, I forgot this question. Charles Chamberlain, do you have a 10mm socket in that toolbox?
Yeah, how many do you want? Okay. And wrenches. Although 10mm is the one that always seems to get lost. Don't ask me why. It's just sort of this magic karma thing. 10mm sockets like to get lost.
Okay, and let's see, it was a 61 E-type Coupe W.
A Jaguar?
Yeah, the Jaguar.
You know what? I have a good friend that vintage races Jaguars. Let me get a hold of him and see if I can come up with an answer for you on brakes. Because he's pretty active. I mean, he spends a lot of money on his cars, and he goes really fast, and he's really good. But he's got, I think, an E-type that's just really super tricked out. But yeah, let me check with him on big brake packages.
And Donald, could you send me an email at info@kennybrown.com with your information so we can contact you on this? How's that sound?
Yep.
Okay.
Time for one more?
Well, I think Brad says Kenny got pulled out by the local police department in the car. The cop was super pissed when Kenny told him that the car was owned by Ford.
Yeah, I mean, I got pulled over. It's like 5 miles an hour over, and this cop, he was short, and he had these great big mirror sunglasses on. I'm sure you get the picture. And he was just reading me the riot act. And I said, this is a customer car. Well, he said, who owns the car? I said, Ford. And he just got really pissed off. I kept saying, Ford owns the car. And he just thought he just really got pissed off. Instead of giving warning, I got a ticket. Even after I pulled out the little registration thing, it said Ford Motor Company. Anyway, be wary of short little cops with great big huge mirror sunglasses.
But we are pro cop.
Yeah, we're pro cop.
So, okay, so anyway, when you were going, I asked if you would tell one story, and I know it's 12:01. This is it's a Celine story, race story, but it's off track. And it's the one, I think it was at Moseport, where you were running 36 hours.
Huh. Yeah. Moseport 87. 24 hours for the team is way more than 24 hours. Because we're at the track at 5 o'clock in the morning. The race goes off, I think, I can't remember, like 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock or something like that. So we just done 24 hours. And after the race, they impound the first 4 cars for teardown. Check for legality. Okay, so we're in impound. And we got all 3 of our cars were impound, first, third, and fourth. And, you know, I thought, oh, God, we are so tired. You know, tearing all these cars down, it just, you know, nobody wanted to do that. So I made a deal with the tech guy. And I always go out of my way to be nice to tech guys, do what they say, you know, treat them with respect, because you never know when they can help you. So I made a deal. I said, hey, look, if any car is illegal, it's going to be the car that won. I said, why don't we just tear down that one, and if that was legal, the other 2 have to be. So we did. We had to pull heads, and I forget what else we did. They checked a whole bunch of things. It was a pretty good teardown. And the other cars we had to do, we got by, but just like pulling like valve covers off of one, something off of the other. Anyway, we didn't get the cars back and everything into the trailer till late in the afternoon, and we're on our way back to the hotel. We're in a van, and everybody's in there. Everybody behind me was asleep before we got to the gate at Mosport. And Rex was sitting next to me, and I said, Rex, you got to keep me awake. So we were talking along, and you know, we're kind of going through Bowmanville, and you know, I look over, Rex is asleep. I woke him up, say, come on, you got to keep me awake. And anyway, we're stopped at a stoplight, and the next thing I know, there's people honking at me. I fell asleep at the stoplight. Rex was asleep, everybody was asleep, so I thought I joined and fell asleep at the stoplight. It's kind of like that kind of jolt to me, and I stayed awake all the way to the hotel then.
Anyway, I just love that story.
That's a little side story. Yeah, so if you're doing a 24-hour race that turns into about 40 hours worth of work, have somebody who slept drive you back to the hotel. That's the moral of the story. So I think we're kind of overtime today. Had some good questions. Remember, if you want to ask questions come from Speed Therapy Society. So if you're not a member, jump in and be a member. Speed Therapy Academy will start August 4th. And we're going to start the interviews, probably start the interviews as soon as next week. And so that's going to help. I know what I'm going to talk about, but once I talk to you guys, I'm going to have a better clue of what you're really looking for, so we can kind of dig down and get a little more detailed and everything. Like I say, it's going to be on Zoom. So every week I'm going to see all your little faces across the top. And it's going to be a lot more intimate than like Facebook Live. So I hope she's laughing.
Oh, you have to tell this one, because this one might be even better. Okay, first of all, I added the link to join the Speed Therapy Society. It's a really fun group, so join it if you can. There's a link in there. Brad said, what about the time you parked behind a semi and Rex woke up?
How do you keep remembering these things? Okay, this is 87. Okay, Celine cars were heading to, I think it may have been either Portland or Sonoma, one of the two. And we take, you know, we were based in Omaha at the time, taking Interstate 80 across. And like every time, I mean, we were busting our ass right up to the time we had to leave. It seems like we never ever got ahead, but in a race team, I mean, that's what it takes to win championships. I mean, there is no rest. You got to just work your tail off. So everybody piles in. We had the semi, we had the little van, and we had the fifth wheel with some other stuff. So this little, I think it was Aerostars or something. I can't remember what the vans were back then. So anyway, we're driving across Wyoming in the middle of the night, and it's kind of like stormy, and everybody's tired. So we pull into a rest area, and we pulled the van up real close to the back of the semi, just to kind of get out of the wind. So everybody goes to sleep, and all of a sudden we hear this earth-shattering scream. Well, Rex was driving. What happened is he woke up, forgot where we were, thought we were going to crash into the van, just let us have this huge scream.
It's like, ah!
Yeah.
Away from the van.
Yeah, because I mean, we were like this far from the semi.
Okay, that's good to go.
Okay?
Yep,
We're good. Okay, join us next week. Speed Therapy Society, send your questions in. That's what we know we're going to talk about. Remember, I talk about what you want to learn about, and we will stay safe.